Welcome to my channel. This is my little platform where I turn struggling math students into maths masters. I am also creating a platform where you are able to get worksheets and work through memorandums for each video. So please keep an eye out on the community page on my YouTube channel if you want to know when I do that. So it's important for you to then subscribe and turn on the notification button so you can at least know when anything is happening on my channel. Right, so in this video, I am going to explain to you all the different properties of a triangle, the different types of triangles, and then also how to answer geometry questions based on triangles. All right, so without further ado, let's jump in. Okay, so I am teaching you about triangles, and you know I always like to start and make sure that we are all on the same level and that we're all clear what we are talking about in this lesson. So what is a triangle? I'm pretty sure you all know this by now, but I just want to clarify. A triangle is a shape that has three sides and three angles, and those angles add up to 180 degrees. So when we talk about sides, we are referring to, the sides, these sides here, if you can follow my cursor, and then the angles is literally just, the size of the corners of each of the triangles. And these sides must always add up to 180 degrees. Right, so that's how you identify a triangle. And essentially triangles, and the way I'm going to teach it is that they can be organized or categorized according to their sides and according to their angles. Okay, so I'm going to first explain how they are categorized by the sides, and then we're going to move over to angles. Okay, so triangles categorized according to their sides looks as follows. The first one we have is an equilateral triangle. So an equilateral triangle, all sides of the triangle have equal length. So remember, we are categorizing these triangles according to their sides. And if all the sides are equal, then we call that an equilateral triangle. That's simple enough. So in an equilateral triangle, all these angles, all the sides are equal, right? And this is what we use to symbolize the lengths of the sides are the same. So that's why these lines are on each of them, because each of these lines are exactly the same length. And then, so if the one essentially is 3 centimeters, then the other two are also 3 centimeters. This makes up an equilateral triangle. Now, if we look at the angles of an equilateral triangle, you will also know that they add up to 180, and all of them are equal. So that means each of the angles of an equilateral triangle is 60 degrees. Okay, so that's just the first type of triangle, equilateral triangle. And you'll see when we actually do questions why it's important for you to actually know all the properties of each different triangle so you can actually answer the questions. Right, let's move over to the next one, an isosceles triangle. So an isosceles triangle only has two sides of the triangle that are equal in length, right? So let's look at what that would look like. So that means that I have two sides that are the same, and then the third side would not be the same length. If I had this triangle where these two are now 65 millimeters each, and then the bottom one would obviously be different. Another important aspect of an isosceles triangle is to note that at the base angle of the two equal sides, those angles are always equal as well. So if the one is 70, the other one will also be 70. And because the angles of a triangle, all three must add up to 180, then obviously 70 and 70 gives me 140, then the top angle is 40 degrees. The important things to remember here is that we have two sides that are equal, and the bases at the bottom of those two equal length lines are equal angles. Okay, so these numbers are just examples, so it's not every isosceles triangle has the angles 70 and 40, but in every isosceles triangle, the base triangles underneath the equal lines will be the same. Okay, where with the equilateral triangle, always, the angles were always equal to 60. Okay. Then the third one is called a scalene triangle. So obviously this one is all three sides have different lengths. Okay. So in the equilateral triangle, all three sides are the same. In isosceles, only two of the three sides are the same. And in a scalene, all three sides of the triangle have different lengths. So this is what it would look like. If you notice there, all of these lengths are different and all of the angles are different as well. Okay. So that is sort of how you have to understand these different types of triangles. The important thing, one, is knowing that all angles of a triangle add up to 180, and then you get angles that are categorized by their sides. And you know, three sides are equal, equilateral triangle, two sides isosceles, and none of them are equal to each other is scalene. Okay, so now we have a look. And now I'm just going to do a couple of examples before we actually move over to triangles categorized according to their angles. Okay, so let's have a look. It's important for you to note, if you watched any of my other geometry videos, that whenever we are working with geometry, we always have to give reasons for our answers. So for this example, the questions are based on what you've just learned. So let's see what a question or a test question could look like for these types of triangles. So the question states, in each question, determine the value of x and y with reasons where applicable. So if we look at number one, we try and identify what type of triangle this is. So obviously we can see that this is an equilateral triangle because all three sides are the same. So already, if we have to find x, what do we know about the equilateral triangle? We know that all the angles equal to 60. So therefore, x actually equals to 60. Why? Give a reason, because this is an equilateral triangle. Okay. Then also, y would equal to 5 millimeters, because you agree that all three sides must be the same in length. And if one length is 5 millimeters, then the second length also needs to be 5 millimeters. And the reasoning is also because it's equilateral triangle. Okay, so do you see how you have to apply the knowledge that you've now acquired to actually answer specific questions? So let's try number two. This is, if I look, I've got two sides that are equal, so already my mind says this is an isosceles triangle, right? And what do I know about the isosceles triangle is that the base angles are equal. But if you notice here, I don't have this other base angle, so it's not as simple as saying x is equal to something. I actually have to calculate this. So if you think about it, the angles of this triangle add up to 180 degrees, right? So if these two are the same, all I need to do is I have to take the 180 and minus the 20 degrees, which gives me 160, right? And these two together must give me 160, which is simple. Then if these have to be exactly the same, then I would say 160 divided by 2, right? So let me show you what this actually looks like. So 180 minus 20, because the angles of a triangle add up to 180, right? So this plus this must give me 180. So in order for me to find what x's are, I have to subtract 180 from 20 first, so that I know what these two angles must add up to. So this is going to be 160. And what is the reason for that? Interior angles of a triangle, right, must add up to 180, right? Then I take this 160, because I know these two now must equal to 160 in order for this angle to add up to 180. So I would say 160 then, and divided by 2, because I know both of these have to be exactly the same, and I will end up with, and my reason would be angles opposite to equal sides. So angles opposite to equal sides. Please note, this is a very important, it's important for you to write down the reason correctly in these questions. Okay, so this is you can't abbreviate this reason any shorter than what it is here. Okay, So when we said equilateral triangle, you wrote the name of the triangle, but you can't do the same. It's not the same when it's isosceles triangle. You actually have to say that angles are opposite to equal sides, and this is the angles that are opposite to equal sides. Okay, fine. So now we have that, and we know that x must equal to 80. So 80, 80, and 20 then gives me my 180. Okay, so rewind this. This is a little bit of a tricky one. So if you didn't get it the first time, play it over again, and I'm sure you'll get it the second time. Okay, the last question. If I look at this, I can see this is a scalene triangle, right? Because none of the sides are marked as equal. And in this case, I know that the angles must add up to 180, right? So I will go 180 and I will minus the 100 minus the 60, and that means that it's equal to 20. So the reasoning there is interior angles of a triangle. So x is therefore equal to 20. So I want to emphasize, when you're using the rule of angles add up to 180, you don't specify what type of angle it is. So here, we used interior angles of a triangle, and here we use interior angles of a triangle. Also, when we are applying the rules of a scalene and when we're applying the rules of isosceles triangle, we don't, as a reason, refer to the type of triangle. You would literally write the solution here as angles opposite equal to sides if it is a isosceles triangle, and you will just refer to the interior angles of a triangle in a scalene triangle. However, with equilateral triangle, you will use the words equilateral triangle as part of your reason. Okay, so that is now how you work with the different types of triangles, and then we did an example of each. Now we're going to look at triangles categorized according to their angles. Okay, so the first one is a right-angled triangle. So remember, in the previous section now, the emphasis was on the lengths of the sides. Now this one is actually the length of the sizes of the angle. So right-angled triangle, one of the angles in the triangle is equal to 90 degrees. So if I have a triangle that looks like this, one of the angles is equal to 90 degrees, then that makes it a right-angled triangle. Okay. Then the second one is an acute triangle, right? So acute triangle has all angles that is less than 90 degrees, right? So if I look at this, all these angles will be less than 90 degrees. So in this case, it will be 70, 70, 40, taking note that these must obviously add up to 180. Okay. And then we have obtuse triangle, where one of the angles in the triangle is larger than 90. So in this case, this is larger than 90, and so the other two will be less than 90, but all of it always adds up to 180. Okay, so this is just the three different types of triangles categorized according to their angles. Okay, so let's do a couple of examples now that includes everything. So I'm going to give you this exercise that I would like you to try on your own first, and then click play and then see how you did and if you got the answers correct. What I do want to say here is I'm going to go through the questions so that I can help you, but please remember to give reasons for your answers. Okay, so for each triangle, determine A, the value of x and y, if they are, right, with reasons, and then B, the type of triangle. So in this question now, you are going to look at, okay, number one, what is the size of x and y, and then you're also going to say what type of triangle it is, right? So you can either you're going to look according to sides as well as according to angles. Okay, so I want you to try that quickly, and then so pause the video, try it, write it down, write your answers down, and then click play, and we will check how you did in terms of the solution. Okay. All right, so let's look at the answers and what you should have had here. Okay, and I would suggest that you get a pen and tick off and mark your work. make an sort of take note of the questions you got wrong and try and pay attention to why you're getting it wrong so that you can actually fix it, so that when you actually get a question like this at a test, you won't make the same mistake. Okay, so let's have a look at the first one. If I look at this triangle already, I see that there are two sides that are equal. So this was fairly simple. If these two sides are equal, then the base angles are equal. So that means x must equal to 50, right? I hope you got that. X must equal to 50 because remember it's the two angles at the bottom of the equal sides. And for every answer, we must give a reason. And we know if it's isosceles triangle, we say angles opposite to equal sides. Right. Then to find y, if you take note of this, so if this is 50 and this is 50, right? All of these angles must add up to 180, right? So because angles of a triangle add up to 180. So the way you would do this is you'll say y is equal to 180 minus 2 50s, right? So essentially minus 100. And the reasoning there would be interior angles of a triangle because we use the 180 reasoning, right? So there we now know that y is equal to 80 degrees. So for this question, x is equal to 50 and y is equal to 80. And I gave a reason for both of these. Then B for this question says, give the type of triangle. Okay, so if I look at this, I know that this is two sides are equal, so it's an isosceles triangle. And all of the angles are less than 90. So that means it's an acute triangle, right? So we have isosceles triangle and an acute triangle. So the first one categorizes it according to sides, and the second one categorizes it according to angles. Okay, let's look at the second one. So if I look at this question now, already I see that there's no emphasis to the lengths of the sides, but an angle is given to me, and that is a right angle triangle, which is shown with a block. So if I want to find x, I know that these angles must all add up to 180, right? So in order for me to find x, I'm just going to say 180 minus 55 minus the 90. And this answer is due to the reasoning I use for this is interior angles of a triangle. And therefore this answer is then equal to 35 degrees. You will note that whenever I do the calculation, that's when I add the reasoning, because I'm explaining to the person who's marking why I'm doing this type of calculation, and the reason tells you what tells the marker what your reasoning was behind why you showed this calculation. So it's very important that you add it by the calculation side, right? So x is equal to 35. And let's look at the different types of triangles here. Okay, so here we've got a right angle triangle. There is no emphasis to the sides and the lengths of the sides, so we do not know that. So we cannot say what type of triangle, but if I look at this now, I would think, okay, this is probably, a scalene triangle, because they have shown none of the lengths of the sides that are equal. All right, so let's look at number 3. Okay, so number 3, if I look at x again, this is now a scalene triangle, and I can see that one of the 3 angles have been left out, and that's x. So all these angles must add up to 180. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to say x is equal to 180 minus the 2 angles given. And the reasoning is because interior angles of a triangle add up to 180. And then that is equal to 52 degrees. Okay, if I look at this, you will see I'll have a scalene triangle, right, and an obtuse triangle. Scalene is all different sides, but also obtuse because you can see one of the angles is greater than 100. Again, according to sides and then according to angles. The last question. So already your brain is now already going ting, ting, ting. This is an equilateral triangle because all the lengths are the same. So x is 60, and the reasoning there is equilateral triangle, right? Then we need to find y, and one of the lengths of the sides is given. So y also needs to be equal to 105 centimeters, And the reasoning is because it's an equilateral triangle and all the lengths are the same. Right, so what type of triangle are these? One, it is an equilateral triangle, but it is also an acute triangle. Okay, because all of the angles are 60, which means all of them are acute triangles. Right, acute means less than 90 and obtuse means greater than 90. Hopefully you got this right. Hopefully you've paid attention to where you've made mistakes so that you don't make mistakes in a test or in an exam. And that is triangles. Alright, so there's that video. Hopefully you found it helpful. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up. Also, in the comment section, if you have any questions or if you have any recommendations for future videos, please add it there and I will definitely try my best to make a video for you. Yeah, thank you so much for watching and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.